Hello guys, today I am looking at a game called Black Souls. This is a pretty kind of disturbing game, I'm not gonna lie. I just finished it, and so obviously it's a parody on Dark Souls, but it's made in RPG Maker. And so for those of you who don't exactly know what that is, RPG Maker is kind of like the baseline indie engine for most JRPGs to be made. And so it's very much the same interface as something like Yume Nikki or even kind of Undertale. You know, I think Undertale was made in RPG Maker, but it has so much. Toby put so much different stuff and it doesn't resemble it. But yeah, this is like an RPG Maker-esque game where the menus are the same. A lot of the sound effects, very stock images or sound effects rather. So again, it's just a very simple kind of setup to Dark Souls. You know, the world is kind of ending ? And you know, there's a lot of things in this game where it's like, what if Dark Souls was a 2D JRPG? And so this is kind of the answer to that. So what makes Black Souls different is it also has this theme with fairy tales and fairy tale creatures, but there's a lot of references like to Dark Souls 1 that are like a lot of the weapon names are the same, the soul system is basically the same, and instead you don't have humanity, you have other things. Another really big change was they shifted out the fact that what was it? You could basically pick up these things called black souls, but there's also red souls, blue souls, whatever. And so these things, you pick them up in their items and they just buff your stats. So you don't exactly level up really hard in this game, because the way you actually get stronger is by really consuming these souls. And there's no downside to it. So you just get super, super strong, even if your levels get nerfed or something. You don't need to be a super high level to be super, super strong, which is, again, kind of weird in general. And so the one thing that I think I just need to point out about this game is that this is not beyond like an M-rated game. This is an adult-only game. So there are, sex scenes and in this game, and there are also rape scenes. It was kind of ridiculous how like some of the characters, like one of the first options you can press is to rape them, and it'll initiate like a rape scene, and it'll be like this small not exactly cutscene, but like almost like a slideshow, or like a very, very, what someone with MS Paint can do their best to simulate what a sex scene would be like, and there's nothing censored at all. So it's very uncomfortable, obviously. I guess, I don't know. I mean, like, even so, there are some characters you can obviously rape, and there are some characters that will have consensual, intercourse with you. But in either case, the thing is that you are literally an undead, so your body is like a black rotting corpse. So I can't really tell if you're supposed to masturbate to these, if these are supposed to be erotic or not, because they're really messed up in a lot of ways, I'll be honest. And even when they are consensual, it does not, I mean, again, it's an MS Paint. The guy's body is basically a living corpse. It's not exactly the most appealing thing. And it has a very, I guess, dark tone because of that. For example, I mean, I just kind of get it off my chest. There's like one scene at the beginning where if you end up trying to have sex or rape a fairy, you basically kill it in the process. So it's a really like super disturbing setup, and really sets the tone for a very darker version of the game. And I felt really, really bad when that happened. Fortunately, the fairies respawn, so you can actually do it as many times as you want. But yeah, it was not good, and it really kind of, I guess, I know, explored that whole sexual dynamic where, like, there are certain characters where if you rape them, they basically become useless, and they just go to like your goon cave or whatever, or your like prison in the back of like the starting area where you can just rape them over and over again for that cutscene. But then if you do that, then that character, you can't summon them to battle. So it has a really cool setup, honestly, where Unlike Dark Souls with its like assistance system, what it does is you can basically use magic to summon characters to battle like a JRPG. So they are never there automatically. You always have to kind of summon them into battle so that they can appear. And so the other thing about that is, so yeah, if you just use them as literally a sex object, you do not have them as a party member. They will not fight for you. They will not level up. They will not do anything for you. And like it's a huge disadvantage, and so it makes you feel really bad about in general, like using people as sex objects means that they don't reach their full potential and they potentially can't help you in the battles to come or otherwise. And so it kind of has a message or a point in that respect, that it's really messed up to treat someone as an object, because then no one really benefits. It's really it's interesting how that gameplay mechanic communicates it to some kind of moral in some way. But yeah, the world is very similar to Dark Souls, the way it's set up. There's some places that are interconnected. You can travel to them in different ways. There are certain missable NPC quests. Again, it gives you the option to kill almost every NPC you come across, which is very similar to, the original Dark Souls. If you weren't careful sometimes, I still talked about the story where my friend, I gave her the controller for like 5 minutes and she ended up killing like, the guy of Thalamond, or Orphus of Thalamond, who is like in the original Dark Souls, who's actually a bad guy who kills the saint, but you don't know that. And it's just really funny that happened. But anyway, yeah, in this game, there are missable side quests and stuff like that. They also have this thing where, again, you pick up items and they give you like even things are called like, soul of a nameless soldier, or hero soul, or great soul, or pine resin. Like a lot of things are just really just copied right off Dark Souls. What is not copied though is the monster design, which is really, really good in this game. I was really impressed by the monster design. You definitely have demons. Okay, yeah, there is the Taurus demon, but there are also like angels and seraphim. There are also weird crows. There's a T-Rex, and honestly, the art for the characters is really cool, especially the skeletons. Like I've seen a bajillion skeletons in a lot of different games, but the skeletons in this game, they look really good, and they're just sprites. They're just moving back and forth, but they just look really, really cool. Again, the soul system works the same way. You level up, you go to this like hamster or something that's sitting by your main base in this holy forest. Also, the way you level up your companions, and they level up way faster than you, is, well, honestly, through H or sex scenes, basically. They call them H scenes, same thing, hentai. So that's how you actually level them up, and that can be kind of frustrating if you have to keep doing it over and over again. So yeah, the objective initially seems to be that you want to essentially just save as many of these people as you can, level them up, etc. Stuff like that, and just kind of go through the bosses. And that whole sort of formula of Dark Souls of like exploration, leveling up, discovering like mini stories and other characters, it really works and translates well to the 2D RPG framework, which I would not think at all would be the case. But yeah, no, it actually works really well. So I think this game is a weird mixed bag in the sense that, yes, it has sexual content in it, but for a game to have sexual content but also be really, really well made, it's almost like a game first with H scenes in it, rather than a sex game first with Dark Souls mechanics. It really is a game firsthand, and the sex scenes comprise maybe 5 to 10% of the game. Which is pretty shocking, frankly, and it's made really well. So it's very interesting in that aspect. And again, the sexual content, sometimes is, sets the tone where, again, using people as objects or consensually even, it's still very messed up because I don't know, you're just like this undead corpse that's having intercourse, and it feels really for lack of a better word, soulless. Like, it's really, I don't know, it feels really messed up, and it feels really, really wrong, and you're just living in this really dystopian world. And I mean, it's dark fantasy, right? But even so. The one thing that I did say that kind of surprised me about this game is, again, I like this new soul system where you're able to just like use a bunch of stuff, a bunch of souls, and consume them, and in that process you get super, super strong. But it also makes the game way too easy, and there are certain points where you actually have a statue right outside the home base where you can increase or lower the difficulty depending on how you feel. And there was a point where, like, at the halfway point, I was one-shotting every enemy and one-shotting almost bosses after that. So it's like, okay, I need to increase the difficulty. But then immediately I thought that, I got to this area where the enemies were one-shotting me. So I was like, okay, this is kind of ridiculous. We're just nuking each other. This is like an actual kind of broken game. I mean, it's an indie game, so you can't expect it to be super balanced, but for what it is, it's pretty decent. But yeah, no, I had no issue with like the final boss and the final bosses. By that point, I was so unbelievably strong. It was ridiculous. And also, I forgot, this game also uses an ATB system, which is an active battle system. So you basically have a meter that fills up, and that's kind of the time it takes. And then if it's Final Fantasy VII, it allows you to attack once the meter's full. Another really cool thing that I think this game really does that makes it stand out is, again, it takes those fairy tale aspects. So there's a lot of girls from, Snow White, Cinderella, whatever. But the thing is that they are all evil, and they've all reversed it. So usually the main characters of all the fairy tales are the villains, and the villains in all the traditional fairy tales, like the Big Bad Wolf, are actually, the victims or something, or the heroes. So that's really weird and really interesting. So it's a nice mix, and it's not very, like, it's transformed enough. It's not like the characters are lifted perfectly from their environment. For example, Alice is a android, or this doll thing inside this underground, what do you call this, underground library in Wonderland. And that's actually really interesting, because that's where the meta kind of breaks down. So Alice is the character that I kept being seen talked about, and I could never figure out what the art was from. And so it turns out that she's from this game, the art in this game. And again, I was just super confused as to why she's super popular. It's because she's technically sort of the main character. Out of all the main characters, she is the one that is able to essentially realize that this is a game, that she can see the meta of it and how messed up everything in it is. And so the real meta is that in her library, basically, you which is, again, hidden in Wonderland, and you find this maybe 3/4 of the way through the game. In the library, there's all these missing books, and the books are dropped when you do certain boss battles. So you realize you need to defeat all the bosses and also the optional sub bosses throughout the world to fill the library and then get the true ending. And so, like, I thought, that's actually really cool. And so it's also super interesting because there's something I've always liked about Souls games in general is optional bosses. I don't know why, but the fact that there's like a weird like witch's palace, and it's not just, oh, this is the next boss, or this is, you need to like get stronger for this boss, but like the idea that there's a hidden boss or like a sub boss, I don't know why I've always really liked that idea, that there's just this optional little thing you can find. Kind of, it almost feels like No More Heroes if it wasn't sequential. And the fact you could discover bosses, I don't know, I just thought that was super, super cool, and like a very distinct experience, because you could find it later or before. And the idea that the boss is not going to be just super hard, but there's going to be something interesting about it. That's what I really like about, at least in theory, about these optional bosses. Anyway, so you have to do all the optional bosses. You find all of them. Some of them are in weird places too, where like I've literally been through here and it looks like a boss arena, but they don't spawn in until later for some weird, stupid reason. And then I had to use the guide and basically find out, oh, now they're spawned, now they did this arbitrary thing. And aside from that, they kind of, you kill them all, you fill up the library, and then Alice is like, oh, there's a secret hidden room behind this door. And they think, aha, finally. But once you open that room, it reveals another room of a smaller library. And then that reveals that, because it always says the name of the book you need to get, so it's never a mystery. And so the names of the books in this room are the names of all your companions, and you realize, oh my god, I need to actually kill all of my companions in order to get the true ending. And so it's kind of this, it flips the script, and it's actually pretty cool. I was kind of annoyed by that. I was super annoyed in the original Dark Souls, because if you just leave that room once you defeat the final boss or interact with the flame, it'll just activate like the final cutscene and then restart the game without you having any input in it. And I found that to be super frustrating and aggravating, because I wasn't done doing everything and it just starts it over already. I'm like, okay, well, god damn it, I guess I have to do this now. Aside from that, the one annoying issue is that there's this cool little ball, actually. I really like how they do it in this game, where there's this ball where, you can kill the final boss, which is Cinderella, apparently. You can basically kill her, and it has the final fog. And I really like, again, what they did with this, where the fog itself that is on the way to boss battles, that is the actual thing that is causing all the curse throughout the land. So you actually have to destroy the fog. And so once you kill Cinderella, you can choose to leave and then come back later once you've done a bunch of stuff, so the game doesn't automatically end right there and then and there. And so you can go to the fog and choose to touch it yourself, and that gives you the final or the normal ending or the final ending. You can choose to touch it with someone else, so you get a final cutscene where you and one of your harem of waifus ends up retiring in the countryside or something. Or there's a weird little thing, they have weird little things where it turns out, one of the girls was actually possessed by a succubus this whole time, and you had no idea. And then another one, it's actually pretty brutal. The Red Riding Hood character, she actually leaves you even though you settle down with her. So yeah, there's the endings are pretty interesting, I would say. And again, it's taking that really dark tone and incorporating fairy tales and grim stories. And there's the whole meta is kind of silly a little bit, where the god of the world is literally called Mary Sue. And so it's kind of she's the stereotypical character that's overseeing everything. But yeah, it's so imagine basically Dark Souls with dark fairy tales and superimposed onto it with also rape. That's basically this game, and Sprite 2 based JRPG. It's a very weird mix of a lot of things, but I understand why people like it, because the progression and the movement of the game and how it flows does feel really good, and it does make a lot of sense. And again, the art for the enemies is really good. The sex scenes is much worse than the art for the enemies, which I guess I suppose is preferable. And yeah, you can start the game as either knight, I forgot the other one, an assassin, and then a mage. I was playing as mage, and I found it super easy. Once your once your magic power powers up, and you can do AoE attacks, so you don't have to attack everyone at the same time, or you can attack everyone at the same time, the game became super easy. And yeah, and two, I think my favorite areas are the Sabbath Forest, or the Forest of the Sabbath. That was really cool. It's just a forest filled with classical Taurus demons and stuff. And if you go into these small ponds, these gigantic squid things pop up and start chasing you. So again, I'm really impressed with the enemy design in this game. It's actually top notch what you are actually fighting. And again, there's a lot of the equipment is very the same as Dark Souls. You have the Dark Grain wood ring, which it doesn't make you move differently or something. I don't know what it really does, because in battle it's Earthbound or whatever, you see the enemy but you can't see yourself, so I have no idea what they're going on with that. Again, there's a lot of optional things to miss, story bits. But yeah, as much as I enjoyed playing this game, I don't know if I'd recommend it, because it is very dark. And again, the fact that it has those rape scenes and just the tone of that inclusion and whatever, I didn't feel very good playing this game. Like, I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting, like this is kind of new, it's kind of nuanced, but it just made me feel really bad about myself. So I was like, I mean, it was fun, it was a little bit interesting, it was definitely something different, and I can see why people like this game, because again, it's very interesting, and it's just like a very different version of Dark Souls I would have never expected to play. And in fact, it's even hard to call it Dark Souls because it doesn't have that core, hit roll mechanic. It's because it's a JRPG, but everything else is more or less Dark Souls in design. Fundamentally, even the upgrade system, oh my god, you have to use ore shards and then ore chunks and then an ore slab. Like, come on, it's very, very similar. And yeah, you have bonfires that you can warp between them, stuff like that, with again just all the rape and fairy tales thrown in to spice it up. So I would honestly though, I would love to see a full 3D adaptation of this game, probably without the sex scenes, preferably. It's just a little bit too intense, and it kind of, I don't know, it's a bit much. Maybe there could be like, I don't know, one sex scene, like, Mass Effect style, where it's like, sex, but you never see anything. With like, if you do like the quest for like one of the maidens or something, like I was thinking of the Spider Maiden in the first game, like if you gave her a certain amount of souls or something, then there'd be a cutscene or something like, ooh, I mean, that would be fine. But yeah, the fact that this has actual porn in it is just very badly drawn porn. It just feels weird. And the music too that they play for all of those scenes feels really off-putting and whatever. You could have like metaphorical rape or something, like you condemn them to your prison or something, but again, it's just really, like, it's a very dark theme, and I don't feel like it backs it up with a really good reason why we're exploring that theme. Again, the one thing that it does do that's interesting in that theming is that your sperm or your seed is the souls that you're feeding to your companions, which is interesting, because it's like saying that is your life essence, and that you have as many souls as, like, literally your souls are in your sperm, which is an interesting concept, to say the least. And again, I what I think would be really good about a full 3D adaptation about this game is if you had that fairy tale theme in it. I think it's really, really cool to just take that and be like, oh, they're evil now or something. But yeah, that's pretty much the game. I was surprised by how long it was and how long I stuck with it. I really got into the mode of the going to each area, exploring, fighting the basic enemies, fighting the boss, going to the next area, looking at those enemies, and it kind of made me realize the Dark Souls formula just works really well even in this format. But yeah, that's Black Souls basically. Really, really messed up. I guess I'm glad I played it. I mean, I'll be honest, I did not do the final ending, because it basically requires you to do a new loop to do all the like the complicated side quest stuff, like Sigmar or Katarina. You have to talk to him here and then here and here, but if you go too far in the game, then he's dead. And so like stuff like that. So for example, what I had to do is I had to like I was watching this guide. It's like, okay, I don't feel like doing this. Like, I don't want to get the true ending. You have to like resurrect Jean and do all this stuff. Like, I don't really want to replay this game again. I'm not super into it. I'm not that into it that I want to replay it. It's like, I beat it. I got the normal ending, and I'm really satisfied with that, because again, the game is it's long enough. It's maybe like a 6-7 hour, maybe 8-hour game, which I think is perfect. But yeah, again, it is just really dark with not much else to rationalize how dark it gets. It's like, okay, that's messed up, I suppose. Oh, I should mention, by the way, you can actually when you start the game, you can turn off all the H scenes, so you don't actually have to see any of that. But just know that it's there for sure. Anyway, not much else to say about this game. Again, pretty nifty, pretty interesting, pretty, again, like dark and kind of messed up. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll see you guys later.